If Allah were the God of Israel and Jesus, why then would he deceive and mislead his own creation?
We have so far investigated most of Muhammad's characteristics based as usual entirely upon the Muhammadan records themselves, that invariably have shown him to be the exact opposite of what the Muhammadan scholars do their best to deceive both the believers and the unbelievers. So far, we have touched on several of his characteristics in our chapters 33, 38, 41, 43, 59, 89, 93, 101, and more. Muhammad was actually the most consummate artist on deception, fraud, and lying. The Arabs of the so-called Jahiliyyah, days of ignorance, had more honor, veracity, and decency than they ever had or could ever have after Muhammad and his Quran have done to pervert them. He encouraged treachery, lying, betrayal, deception, and all other similarly nefarious characteristics for as long as they were useful to his agenda to convert the whole of humanity to his twisted vision of Islam. These accusations are not based on anger or hate, but are based entirely upon the Muhammadan Muslim records themselves, in the Quran, in the Hadith, and in their history, as we have repeatedly shown. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you of the conclusions that we have made about Muhammad and his Allah in chapter 29, Satanic Quran. In fact, every letter, every word, every ayah, verse, and every chapter, surah, in the Quran are the product of Muhammad's personal thoughts and imaginings, his own alter ego, cleverly projected into the unsuspecting mouth of Allah, the supreme pagan rock god of Mecca, embedded into the corner wall of the Kaaba called the Black Stone. All the major players in the Quran, Allah, Gabriel, and Satan, are actually one and the same, Muhammad himself. That is why I shall prove to you that Allah is a deceiver, exactly like his character author Muhammad. Al-Baqarah 2.6. As for the disbelievers, it is the same whether you warn them or not. They will not believe. Allah has set a seal upon their hearts, upon their hearing, and a covering over their eyes. There is a great torment for them. The disbelievers will not believe because Allah had already predestined them to be so. Allah has set a seal upon their hearts, upon their hearing. They are not at fault, since they have had no choice in the matter. Yet, the allegedly merciful and compassionate Allah nonetheless sends them to eternal damnation in his hell. In fact, Allah's predestination is the ultimate form of deception. Al-Baqarah 2.9. They deceive Allah and those who believe, but they only deceive themselves. An-Nisa 4.142. Surely the hypocrites strive to deceive Allah. He shall retaliate by deceiving them. How is it possible from both the intellectual and theological points of view to claim that mere human beings can deceive Allah if Allah is the God of Israel and Jesus? These verses reduce Allah to a mere petulant child perpetrating schemes and deception upon his own creation. This depiction is pure blasphemy. Al-Ma'idah 5.41. Whomever Allah was to deceive, you cannot help. Allah does not want them to know the truth because He intends to disgrace them and then torture them. It is a pathetic belief system if its God, Allah, conspires and deceives His own creation, and then without mercy, morality, or justice, have them consigned to eternal tortures in His hell. In fact, the verse above is pure idolatry, to give human attributes of deception, scheming, and plotting to any divine entity. Al-Anfal 8.30. Remember how the unbelievers plotted against you, Muhammad. They plotted, and Allah too had arranged a plot, but Allah is the best schemer. Ibn Ishaq 3.23. I am Allah, the best of plotters. I deceived them with my guile, so that I delivered you from them. What kind of a God would extol the failings of mortals, such as deception, scheming, plotting, and counterplotting? What kind of a God is so immoral and unjust as to consign innocents to the tortures of his hell? Are these verses not blasphemous when applied to any supreme creator? Al-Ra'd 13.27. Say, Allah leads whosoever He wills astray. Does the reader need any more unambiguous statements asserting the predestination of mankind? If mankind is predestined, what for is then the need for religion? And if there is no need for religion, then there is obviously no need for prophets or for Satan. Hence, there is no purpose for Muhammad or his Quran. Al-Ghafir 40.32. Any whom Allah causes to err, there is no guide. That is how Allah leads the skeptics astray. Muhammad's Allah, being a reflection of his own character, is full of deception and betrayal. Al-Tahrim 66.1. Allah has already sanctioned for you the dissolution of your vows. With this convenient verse, Muhammad is allegedly sanctioned by Allah to break all treaties and promises made with others. I can go on reciting further such abominations, but will not, because I would prefer our listeners to investigate them themselves and then tell us what they think. Ladies and gentlemen, believers and unbelievers, again and again and again, the hadiths paint a disgusting and unholy but truthful and factual portrayal of Muhammad's Allah. Even in the 21st century, 1400 years later, nothing has changed. The modern followers of Muhammad, politicians, educators, leaders and their media do their best to deceive the unbelievers as well as the believers by doing their utmost to pretend at distancing themselves from those whom they call radical Muslims. In fact and in reality, by their deafening silence, they actually agree, condone and support suicide bombings, assassinations, terror and the undermining of our democracies with the sole purpose of their publicly declared aim of Islamizing the whole of humanity.